And all right, it's 4 o'clock, and we're going to start the scheduled meeting for the Fort Scott Land Bank Board. And we have a quorum.
Yes, we do.
We have a quorum. Okay. Want to do the flag salute to start the meeting? I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. You have an agenda in front of you. Are there any additions to the agenda? Does the agenda order look okay?
This is actually the agenda from the last.
Yes, it
meeting.
is.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I wasn't given a new one, so
Yeah.
this is the last one I had.
I guess I just still feel like we're kind of spinning our wheels until we figure out some kind of a budget and some kind of allocation from city, county, or otherwise. I feel like it's not fair to have people keep attending our meetings when we can't give anybody an answer right now as far as I'm concerned, but I don't know what you guys think.
Well, we're certainly spinning our wheels.
Yeah.
We need to get some direction, some expertise or something, as the lady from Pittsburgh mentioned. We need some help, get things rolling. As Tim mentioned, no one has time.
Was there any conversations with the county and or the city on budget? Because I think we all agreed at our last meeting that $5,000 is not enough to mow and keep up with properties we do have now, let alone take on others.
At this time, there hasn't been any conversation about dollar amount with either the county nor the city. The city, however, commission meeting is next week, and I believe that was going to be a topic of conversation next week at the city commission meeting. So,
But I would ask, I mean, based on the information, I mean, initially you're right, Bailey, we had $5,000 that was put in here. Some of that is already gone, I believe, to some title work.
That's nice because I'm the treasurer and I don't know anything about that.
Yeah.
I'm the treasurer and I don't know anything about
Okay.
that, so
Well,
we probably need to get that figured out.
This, you're right, that does need to be done, but what I was hoping we get, maybe if nothing else out of here, I mean, based on the number of properties that were projected that we're probably going to end up with this fall, what amount do we want to ask?
Yeah, I
the
think
city
last
for?
meeting Patrick recommended that we come up with some kind of a budget. I think we all agreed that $5,000 doesn't even come close to cover what we need. I don't feel like it's fair to keep having a room of people come and sit here when we're not in a position where we can make any decisions. And I think we've done the exact same thing for every meeting we've had now. So I'm ready to make a little bit of progress or come up with some kind of a direction or plan as far as how we're going to start making some progress.
Can we go into an executive session
No, you
and
cannot.
have that discussion?
Nope.
It all
cannot.
stays open.
It all stays open.
I asked earlier, and yeah, we can't. So.
I would recommend not using anyone's names during discussion of, I think I know what direction you're going, but that's just recommendation. Be very careful naming names in our discussions.
So here's the thing
just recommendations. So.
Here's the thing I was thinking about, and this is relative to Bailey's comment. Actually, there is somebody that some taxpayer money's been spent on to be educated about land bank. Maybe as a group we could agree on having that person appointed in a non-voting position, obviously, because I think the city commission already made that clear and already dealt with that. They appointed a board. We've all agreed that we need some help in some direction. I understand that last week somebody was here from Pittsburgh. I don't know that necessarily Pittsburgh is a model we need to follow to a T in the way that we got to get started somewhere, which brings about the money thing again. You can't hire anybody when you don't have the funds for it. Even if we had $100,000 extra tomorrow, that doesn't warrant paying someone in a paid position to be assisting us with the land bank. But if there is a volunteer that would be an advocate for us, we should consider that.
Okay, I would say that if we are going to put somebody into that position, due to the amount of work that I understand is going to be on the back end, because I know you weren't here the last meeting, but pretty much everyone else around this table said they didn't have time to be reaching out, trying to find whoever the landowner might be, trying to get clear title on the property and everything else. I think that what we do need to look for is to your point, not another voting member, but I do think, like Pittsburgh has, we do need some type of, even if you want to call it a land bank administrator, to carry the ball forward. And then, yes, the voting members of the committee will make those decisions. But we can't, I think we're at such a state right now, this many months down the road, that we don't have time to train somebody new and say, hey, when you have time, do this.
And am I hearing a volunteer? Is that what you're saying?
Volunteer. Here's the thing. Like I don't want to have a conversation with this board, and I don't think anybody should want to have a conversation. If you think about being a business owner, when you first started, you don't start out making a bunch of expenses. Let's go some time and see how it goes, and then decide with some time. Let's start liquidating at least some properties before anybody has a discussion about paying anybody to do anything.
I don't, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say my concern is more. I mean, I do think who's gonna carry out the day-to-day duties of land bank is of concern, but I think a bigger concern is our budget, because we can scale back what we are able to do and what we're not, according to what we have the manpower to do. And I think we have some things on the table that we could probably start tackling with what we're able. But I think we addressed last time that $5,000 isn't even going to cover mowing for the properties that we have, and we're looking at taking on another 40 something, correct? So my concern is more the budget, and honestly, I just think it's haphazard of us to sit up here and not have some kind of numbers down at this point.
Well, I'd like to propose that, I agree with Tim that we've got to have a daily manager. And if we have somebody, given the magnitude of the duties, especially starting out, I think we're setting someone up for failure if we do it volunteerism or part-time even. If that person's got their hands and feet in several different dance floors, it's going to be a train wreck. And we're going to end up with less than we want. I view this housing and these kinds of properties as the number one issue facing Fort Scott. This has got to be solved, and we can't, half bake it. We've got to go all out and have a great decision on this thing. And so what I would like to propose is, at Bedco, we went through a rigorous hiring process to find a highly qualified full-time person. And I'd like to propose that you allow Bailey and I to form a small committee and come up with a budget of a full-time person and all the other expenses of what it would take to run a land bank, mowing, title work, etc., and come up with a budget that's going to make this thing work right. Because we just don't want to half butt this thing. We want to make it work. It's the most important issue in Fort Scott, I believe. And then when we come up with a credible budget, then we can approach the powers that be in the county and the city about funding this. And then in this process, budgeting process too, we can also look at third-party funding, grants and things like that we can use. Craig and I are on the Community Foundation board, and we have spent a lot of time convincing the board members that this is an issue that we need to create some Community Foundation funds to. And so anyway, that's how I feel. I think we need somebody full-time. For 2 years, it's a full-time budget. I began my banking career in the real estate area, and they give the kid at the bottom the worst jobs. And I chased down, title work and owners and neighbors, and I fixed bank property problems for the biggest bank in Kansas, and it was rigorous. And if you do it for a while and then let it drop and do it for a while, it's just maddening, because people escape and you lose track. So that's how I feel. I would like to move that you allow Bailey and I to produce a budget that contemplates committing full time to this thing and making it work right for all the people in Fort Scott. And then we can think about if the municipalities will support that, then we can kind of come up with a process to find that full-time person.
Just a side note to that. When the land bank was originally proposed, it was going to be funded by what? Because it was more than $5,000. Where
Some of the money was looked at from the sale of the First Source building.
no, I mean back when they originally.
I couldn't
when-
answer that question.
When Rhonda and Susan and I don't know who else all went through the training, there was a commitment on behalf of the city to
There was a
largely
commitment.
fund the land
Yeah,
bank.
there was a
correct?
commitment.
Or am I
There was
wrong?
a commitment on behalf of a private citizen / organization for $30,000 at that time. But that, I
That dynamic's changed.
yeah, that's changed. Yeah.
That's off the table.
Yep.
So I'd like to make a motion that we allow Bailey and I to come up with a budget. What we'll do is research on what a full-time director costs. We have several in SEK that we can get information on. Should be public, their salaries and benefits, et cetera. And so we can put together a budget. We can do that really quick. Can't we, Bailey?
Sure. We have all kinds of time on our hands.
Yes.
While you're together, can you call and check on titles and landowners and all that other stuff you used to do?
Yeah, we'll get right on that. Before next Tuesday's commission meeting.
So any discussion or am I?
There's no second yet.
No second, sorry. All right, are we gonna bring it up to the different commissions? Because I'd like you guys to start thinking about it too, where we're
I
not,
agree.
because otherwise we're another month out past.
Well, and if it's not going to be a priority for either the city or the county, then what are we all doing here?
And so I think that's what should come first.
I agree.
It's what?
Find out for somebody to go, to have somebody go back to the commission. Hey, Rob, what are you doing?
But hey, Robert, we can't go to them with just a concept or an idea. We have to go to them with data. Here's what it's going to take to run the land bank. Are you in? And that's what I'm proposing. That we create a budget and then we go hat in hand to municipalities and say, here's what we need. Are you in? And then the municipalities can decide whether this is a priority or not. And we'll do that this week.
Yeah, the numbers would be important. So I would second your motion.
Okay.
Because the numbers can either make it pass or the numbers themselves can shoot it down.
Yeah. And then we have to figure out a half-baked plan for this thing, which I don't like. But
So we have a motion and a second for Greg and Bailey to work on a budget that can be taken to the city and the county, I guess.
Yeah, I would like to discuss this a little bit more if we can. So what, between now and when we get our budget and when we get into commissions, we're looking at 2 months, right?
no, we'll get a budget this week. The idea is to get something that we can go before the commission on Tuesday.
So we're, okay.
So we're
So
looking.
we're approving your budget as you guys see fit right now.
No.
No.
We're approving them to go forward to determine what they recommend.
So we're
as
gonna
a
meet
budget.
again then before Tuesday?
Well, we'll have to either do it by email. We can do it by email. We do that at Bedco or Bourbon
Separately.
County Ready all the
You
time.
have
As
to-
long as it's separately.
Right.
You cannot reply as a group.
Yeah.
It's a violation if you
So
do.
we can, we'll send the proposed budget to the chairman and he can send it out and you guys respond up or down. And then we'll decide who goes to the respective commissions and who should we, well, I guess let's vote on the motion and we'll decide who the messenger is.
Good thing you're here, Rob.
Yeah.
I show up and get all the jobs.
Yeah, I will tell you, after watching or visiting with the administrator from the land bank administrator from manager from Pittsburgh and already knowing the research that I'd done over the last 3 or 4 years, that this probably is going to be a full-time job for the first year or two because of the number of properties that are going to end up in our control. And and all of them are going to come to us with a certain amount of work to be done. And the faster we can do the work, the faster we can get them off the mowing list and the money into the coffers. So, take a vote, please.
Okay. This is to allow Greg Motley and Bailey Lyons to produce a budget for the land bank by next Tuesday. Robert Kuhn,
No.
Bailey Lyons,
Do I vote on this?
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Patrick Wood,
Yes.
Tim Van Hookey,
Yes.
Jim Harris,
Yes.
Greg Motley,
Yes.
Craig Campbell.
Yes.
Sure, I have everybody.
All right, so we've got the budget off the agenda. My next suggestion for properties or for the agenda would be to look at the lots that are anticipated coming into the land bank in the next tax sale. Do we want to ask the folks? There's a lot of folks here. There's several folks here. Do we want to ask for public comment, or I don't know.
Might as well not make them sit here the whole meeting.
Yeah. Before we do something, since I want to bring this up, I would recommend that after the budget's created, that someone other than myself present that to the city commission and county commission for obvious reasons. But I think it's best that someone from the board present that to the commissions because I'm not a voice for you. I'm just the guy who carries around the folder right now. You guys are your voice, and so that should be something that you guys go and present to the commissions. And that's just my opinion. I charge you what I offer for it. That's free, nothing. So
You two are out because you're on the commissions.
How about the people that are working
Unless
on
we'll
the
send you to
budget?
the county and you to the city.
No. Well, but you guys tag team it
Yeah, we can.
and present it.
Well, I think we ought to have somebody everybody likes, which is not me, so.
Robert,
That's only Craig. Craig's the only one.
I think you'd be a great spokesperson. You just mentioned this, and this is one of the things that bothers me the most about us to even have a discussion about a budget or that we want to hire a full-time person. We are not responsible for these beautiful lots at Lake Fort Scott. Some of these are so dilapidated and have a higher cost and can be sold. And you just said this, so have a look at some of these properties. We obviously have to have a budget to operate, and I can appreciate that. And I know that there was some discussion from somebody about a better idea about where some of that property would come, where some of that money would come from, some sale of some other property outside of the land bank. I just know that some of these properties are so dilapidated, in such bad shape, and I think the biggest majority of them are going to be properties that, for a very minimal fee, cost plus, we're going to coin off to adjacent landowners and to responsible parties that would be taking better care of them, and essentially adding it to the tax roll of whoever owns that property, where there's going to be something positive happening. I don't think the biggest majority of them are ones that an investor is going to start jumping through hoops to build on, especially until the city is going to get involved in what kind of things they could do for an investor who is willing to do new construction on those city lots. And so, Craig, I think that's what I'm the most eager for us all to see some of these properties and be a little more real about what we're getting dumped in our lap, because I don't think that it's going to turn into a bunch of coin. some of these properties probably already had some form of title work on them, and First Security is probably going to say that they're not guaranteeing title for after 15 years because of not having
Personal service.
personal service. Yeah, and so we don't need to chase our tail with those. We need a way that we can solicit that, and whenever we coin that property off, that we are in fact aren't guaranteeing good title. Doesn't mean that we aren't going to coin it to someone and allow them to do that work. It's not. We don't have to guarantee good title on everything we sell, but we have to be transparent about what's at hand. So if we have 61 properties coming, 40 of them don't have enough value for us to be doing anything with, and it just seems awful premature that we would go start asking for a bunch of money and start thinking about hiring somebody full time. I think city commissioners had an idea that that was how they were going to address some of these properties, not that they would vote on a commission who would turn around and want to hire somebody full time on a budget we don't have. So can we just look at those properties? That's what I want to do. I want everybody to see them. I've seen some of them, so I know.
Is there any comments from either of you that are on the other commissions? Has there been any discussion about the priority of land bank with your respective commissions?
Where I see the priority of land bank, and again, this is just my opinion, is that we don't have a developer down here wanting to buy 100 acres and put a bunch of new homes on it. If somebody comes out to our industrial park and says, this is a neat park, I want to put a facility here and I want to hire 40 people and bring 10 of my people with them, there's no place for them to live. As far as the condition of the homes in town now, I've been kind of coined with the person that people have said, I want to tear down every house in Fort Scott that's old. That's not true. We need to get rid of the ones that are unsafe. We need to try and save those ones that can be rehabbed and turned into a livable property for somebody to move into. And to me, it's more than just reconditioning those properties or getting those properties back where they're viable again. Also, there's the code side of it as well, going forward, of how we manage and maintain these things. So right now, to me, housing in Fort Scott is economic development. We have economic development money, and I can't specify an amount. The commission has to vote. I'm one person from the First Source building. That portion of that was supposed to go to the land bank. And right now, until we have someone coming down saying, I've just bought 100 acres on the north side of town, and I'm going to put 100 houses out there, you know, to help us grow, this is our only resource that we have to try and grow and build as far as adding more housing to our community. And yeah, I don't like adding more money in there as well either. But again, there is the old saying, and if we do it right and smart and we oversight it correctly, sometimes you got to spend a little bit of money to make money, in this case, to make the land bank viable and to move forward. So.
And I think that's perfectly said. And let me give an example of that. We've already been talking about building community partnerships between the land bank, the community foundation, and the state of Kansas in terms of the funds they have available for housing. They have money available. And we, to build a consortium where we hire local trades, not hire, but get school kids from Pittsburgh, Fort Scott, other places that want to build houses like they did for Craig and John Hill a few years ago. And so you've got mostly donated labor, and then you've got donations that help bridge that gap between what the market, what the appraised value would be and the cost. There's a gap there. That's our problem. Hadn't been a house built in Fort Scott since I've lived here 7 years because of that gap. They build a new house that appraises for less than what they built it for. That's not good economics. Nobody's doing it. So how do we bridge that gap? It's got to be outside funds, and we need somebody full time to work on that, because that doesn't happen on a volunteer basis. That's got to be wrestled to the ground. And Tim's right. You have to invest some money in this problem. This is the biggest problem we have. We can't attract new companies and new workers without a place for them to live. It even affects students. People that come from more wealthy jurisdictions bring their kids down there to go to a good school, Fort Scott Community College. Well, where's my kid going to live? You know, so that's even an issue for college students, let alone executives and their higher paid employees. So number one problem, number one economic development issue in Fort Scott, housing.
Go ahead.
I agree that Craig and John's houses are probably the last ones built inside city limits, but that's not the root of the problem. The root of the problem goes back to codes and everything. So what I see is this is land bank's just a cog in the wheel right now. We got a bunch of cog. We got the good places to build because we've got the lots through the land bank, but when we got houses with no windows and boarded up doors and everything across the street, nobody wants to build there. So until we get all of that all working in the same wheel, nothing's going to happen. But this is a step, and maybe it can all work together in conjunction between codes and if we hire somebody on the land bank, maybe that person works from both. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out right
No,
now.
I agree, Pat.
Completely. It is not an incentive at all to even remodel a home to make it livable based on what the surrounding environment may be. Right. And again, I understand that there's a lot of folks in this town, over where I live at, that they're doing the best job they can to keeping their homes up. There's some, however, though, that are just, to your point, there's busted out windows, there's all kinds of stuff going on that you know, we should have some means of doing that to incentivize somebody to say, you know what, that is a really nice looking house. It's in bad shape. Looks like a neat neighborhood. I think I'm going to rehab it and move it forward. But the city has to carry its ball too. And again, I'm just speaking for me, one person. I don't speak for the whole commission. There does need to be better codes enforcement, and whether we find another avenue of doing that or brainstorm on that with folks like yourself, then that needs to be done. But yeah, it does no good if somebody goes in and rehabs a house, and then we're right back in the same condition we were 2 years later.
And it's just hard to get anybody to rehab houses when you got surroundings that way. So
It'd be nice to see a kind of like an aerial with dots as far as kind of to your point, the ones that we're talking about taking, or any of them where you'd have 4 on the same block, because then you're not the best house on, like Pat's talking about, the best house on a block where you got a lot of codes violations, you know. But if you get 4 or 5 on that block, then that looks more appealing to somebody who's talking about.
I bet Matt can come up with something like that.
Yeah.
You know, guys, 8 months ago, I think where Commissioner Harris was, Greg was here. At that time, it was the city commissioners, Greg, well, Jim was here too, as the land bank board. And we said almost the same exact thing, that, you know, the idea of land bank was to hopefully at some point in time we could not just renovate houses, but renovate neighborhoods and create an atmosphere of, you know, where people want to live in these neighborhoods that were predominantly bad housing. And it's been a long process, and nobody likes watching the sausage made, right? Nobody likes government. Nobody likes getting involved in it, but you all have. And I'll tell you, a house, I mean, there are some people in this community, the 3 of you I can think of off the top of my head, that have done some amazing things with some of these houses and created wonderful living spaces. But, you know, I just want to say that I just said all that to just remind you that, you know, we've been doing this for quite some time. I mean, we've been involved since I got here. I think it was my 2nd month here. I was at a land bank meeting. And, you know, we've had many conversations, and, you know, we have to stop making it easy to do the wrong thing and hard to do the right thing. We got to start moving the ball forward. So like Mr. Kuhn said, we need to look at these properties. We need to see what we're getting into, because I think some of them, like you said, are going to be a lot of work. But I also think that we need to really start trying to find a way to move this committee forward in a direction, because I do think that the work you guys are doing is going to truly change the way this community grows for years to come. Not just when housing, but in other avenues too. Because I'm going to tell you, it's very hard to attract a new manufacturer or a new retail or new whatever when they drive through town and there's nowhere for them to live, there's nowhere for their workers to live, and they just it's very hard. It's almost impossible. So
Back to the budget. I find it hard to believe there's never been a budget created for a land bank. Is even back when there was that $30,000 commitment, is there surely somebody's like dug into this a little bit to where we could kind of look at.
Rhonda.
Yes, I prepared a budget when I worked for the city. That's where the $30,000 came from based on that said property. And I've been feeding details about the 60 properties in for budget numbers as well since we last time.
Yeah. So I was saying Rhonda would probably have that because she probably created it back when she
But
was
that
here.
30 was with your labor already figured into the.
All land banks are manned by government employees, either city or county, depending on where.
Now, to my recollection, and I, like I said, don't hold me to this because we were throwing around numbers in the committee in the initial meeting. Rob, and I think you were in that meeting at one point. Someone had thrown a number out there of 25,000 for land bank. It was tabled. It was decided. Let's talk about it and decide. It was 50. Okay. See, I was way off. $50,000, and without knowing the realm, this committee itself at the time was not even fully assembled together yet in discussion, nor did we have an idea of the impact of the upcoming properties until I think Justin was at the meeting 2 or 3 meetings ago and said, look, you guys are going to have close to 81 properties in this land bank here by the fall. That, and it's kind of glad maybe that we did stop it at 50 at that point, because at that time, based on the tax sale, we didn't know that it was going to be that many. I do appreciate and like the idea that Robert put forward on actually going out and looking at these things ahead of time, because to be honest with you, what scares me is we're going to go out and look at all these and we're going to find there's probably even more on there that aren't going to be salvageable, than what there is that's salvageable. And I hope that's not the case, because again, that's really our only source, for adding additional housing relatively quickly.
And then we're gonna have to consider the holding costs of those if it's something that's not gonna be desirable. How much are we gonna spend in?
So how about this? Consider proposal. You guys are gonna try to come up with a budget amount. In the meantime, maybe we can start working behind the curve instead of working ahead. Maybe see if we can find out the list of the 47. That's not guaranteed. It depends on the outcome of the sale, of course, but that number was probably with some foresight. Picture of each one, a short description of it. We can start putting together some sort of book so we know what we have. We have one.
Justin.
We have that list. That's what we're here for today.
Yeah.
Spectacular.
I'm sorry, Justin. Real quickly, I'll just use the chairman's prerogative. Chris, Chuck, do you have any questions or feedback?
We have been looking at a piece of property. I'm Christy Holmes, this is my husband Chuck. For those of you that don't know us, we own Hometown Hub at 206 North National. I got a big mouth, they won't be able to hear me. Oh, I'm sorry. And we have tried since about 2010 to buy the property that is to the south of us. It is a vacant lot. The city put in money to put curbing in, filled it up with gravel, and has not done anything to keep the weeds down, maintained it, or anything. When James Wood was with us, he had actually talked with Rhonda, and we had worked on that, and we thought we had a deal made where we were going to purchase that property, keep the taxes up, we would maintain it, keep all the weeds down, pick up the trash, and I'm not for sure exactly what fell through on that. Since then, we have asked several times about it, and there was even a for sale sign on the lot, and it has been pulled. And we have no idea what's going on with the property. You look around, and there are a lot of businesses that have public paved parking. We generate quite a little bit of income to the community. Sharkey's has a parking lot behind them that is a city-owned parking lot. 2 funeral homes have nice parking lots. And we're not, it'd be great if you guys wanted to go in and pave it. But when you put the curbing in, you made no entryway or exitway through the curbs, and then just dumped a bunch of gravel in there. I have pictures if anyone would like to see the property. Is there anything you want to add to that?
Is this property owned by the land bank?
City, I believe.
Okay, so it's not they, it's them, not us.
Yeah.
What's the address, Christy?
I'm not sure what the address is. So we're at 206 North National. And then there's a road right beside us that runs east and west. And then it's that lot right on the corner. And there's only one other person that might possibly be interested in it. And I don't know whether he is or not. But I believe it's been in the city's possession for a long, long time.
Is it,
My only question is, there's never been anybody that can say, who's got control of the property? I've been here numerous times talking to people, everybody's.
We have a
I think
gentleman
he's-
right back here.
the city owns it? Okay. See, I wasn't aware the city owned it, but yeah, he's got a little app back there. He can tell exactly who owns it.
I mean,
Purchased it for quite some time.
So
I
this,
think you have valid points, but if Land Bank doesn't own it, I
Yeah.
don't think it's anything that we can.
yeah,
Sorry.
So does the city own it?
Sounds like it.
Yes.
So why are they letting it look like this?
That's
I
a,
realize only
That's a-
$5,000
That's a city commission
No,
question.
Yeah,
no, the
yeah.
$5,000 budget is Land Bank, and Land Bank does not own that property. It sounds like the city does. So
Yeah.
their budget would be way more than $5,000.
So then there should be no reason for them to let this property be. The weeds are almost half as tall as a stop sign.
That sounds like what
Yeah.
people get written up for codes on a daily basis
Yeah.
on private property.
I would encourage you to go to the next city council meeting,
Tuesday.
city commission meeting for
Tuesday night.
Tuesday,
6.
and prior
Yep.
to that, you're welcome to, regarding the weeds, and I'll bring it to his attention as well, to contact the city manager. Because that, if I owned a business across from that, I would be upset as well, to find out the city owned it.
Lots of good use out of it.
Yeah.
We could use it for parking, we could maintain it, we could keep the trash picked up. This is my yard guy.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, we thank you guys for coming, and I think we're on the right direction. You've got the city, Mr. Van Hookey, will help you with this.
and I would
And city
ask,
commission.
Brad, are you sitting in for kind of in Kelly's stead tonight?
Yes, so, yeah.
Yeah, is that something we can address
Yeah, I'll look.
first thing in the morning about,
I'll come down and get with you.
So the for sale sign was put on the property by the city, then, is that what I'm
Not
getting
us.
out of this?
no
Not
idea.
It was not us. I know that
If
for
it's
sure.
been since 2010, definitely I wouldn't know.
Okay, so
All right.
Thursday night at.
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Next Tuesday at
Yeah, this upcoming Tuesday, 6 o'clock starts here, same room.
I'll get with you before then. I'll get with you.
Thanks for coming. Appreciate it. I think I heard Justin say that Mr. Quick has a hard stop here in just less than an hour. So, if, would you like to take over, Matt?
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christy and Chuck.
So, Matt, if you come up here, I'm going to need you and Justin or someone to sit here because I need whoever's going to be explaining the properties to talk in the mic. Yeah, you should be able to.
If my grandkids were here to show me how to do it.
You mean Ken, you or?
Why don't you pull a chair over?
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Video on that. I thought it was just
Craig. Chairman Campbell, may I make a comment prior to the presentation?
Yes, you may.
If that's all right.
No, please do.
And Mr. Kuhn, you and I go way back, and I totally agree with one of your statements, but I disagree with another one. I think every single lot that's in the land bank has value. And the value could be long-term planning to make a development, to make the neighborhood better. It could be giving it to the neighbor next door, but there's still going to be value to that. I mean, it's not going to be free. Right now, I mean, I'm making up a number, but it's really close. And Patty's here too today, so she could help me with this. And there's about $400,000 in specials that are going to be a part of these auctions that the city has expended the tax dollars to go towards these lots for tear downs, mowing, things like that. And so when you dump these properties in the land bank, obviously outside of personal service, there's still value. And so even if you don't have personal service and you give it to the person next door, they're going to try to get clear title, or they're going to sit on it for 15 years and mow the grass.
And I wasn't
Right.
saying that they were worthless properties, but
Right.
I agree.
Right.
We were
Yeah.
talking about pocket parks. You're talking about
Right.
value and adding them to adjacent properties.
Sure. But what I'm also talking about the land bank, and where I think the land bank is so important is that I know from firsthand experience, because I've done them, is that you get the same properties over and over again. In 3 to 5 years, you do the exact same parcel again in another auction because it wasn't taken care of, or it was used for the purposes. It was all the guts were squeezed out of the building. You know what I mean? What I mean by that is they come in, they harvest it, or they let someone live there until they tear it down. So
I seen that on Heilman yesterday.
Yeah,
There was a crew tearing down a house that was
Right.
previously at a
right.
tax auction.
So I think and I get the frustration of everybody on this committee. I mean, I think Patty and I and Rhonda, it's been 8 years? Yeah. So we're patient enough because we see the value of it. I think the presentation that was given to you all, you see the value. I hope you understand that you have lots of control over these parcels, and that the positiveness far outweighs the negative. And I agree with Mr. Kuhn, Mr. Wood. I agree with Mr. Motley. I agree with our housing market is in trouble, and we need help as much as we can. And this is a starting point.
And
get that.
hopefully, Justin, not to interrupt, but I mean, the difference is anybody can come into town and buy a lot or buy an old house and just let it sit there until it falls to pieces. At least through the land bank process, they have to come into this board and define what they're going to do to it,
Right.
and within what period of time. And if it's not done,
Claw it back.
then it claws back.
But
to
the
the land
definition,
bank
but the definition of even having it handled, to me, even if you save the taxpayers one mowing fee,
Yeah.
to me that's value, and I think that's,
Yeah.
and I think you were saying that, but
If
I think
we
it
can
was just
pay for
I
it.
misinterpreted
That's
it.
different than somebody coming forward saying, "Hey, I live next to that property. I'll give $3,000."
But they can't. There's no value there.
Agreed.
Right.
And that was
I think that's what I wanted to clarify that, because
that was where I was going with
when I've seen properties sell, and I'm not going to name the houses or the people that bought them, but there are houses that are right next to each other that were bought in the land bank, or not the land bank, were bought in the tax sale. They're now vacant, falling down. People lived in them for a while. They got value out of them, and now the taxpayers are going to have to handle them again. So it's just another example of where communities have taken the land bank and used it as a tool to not create that. I mean, for all intents and purposes, a black market. It's over and over and over and over again. So, and Matt's got the dots. He went in and pulled where the maps can be shown, where you have properties in the same neighborhoods. And just by doing that, we've noticed there are 3 areas where you probably want to keep all 9 of those properties, because you can have control over those blocks, and someday maybe have someone like a contractor come in and buy 4 or 5, or been given 4 or 5 of those lots and build 2 houses on 4 lots, or whatever they need to do. So it's just, this is a long-term planning thing. That's what Mr. Harrington was saying, is that it could really change your community. And you've seen that with the presentation from Pittsburgh and Wyandotte County, places it's really worked. Parsons.
I think part of that is a little bit of direction from the city and the county, though, as to what your long-term
Right.
strategic plan and vision are.
I can't talk on behalf of the commissioners, but I can talk the law on behalf of the county. So I believe that someone in this room is going to be giving a presentation in the city of Bronson tonight about having a land bank. So the county, for us, our savings is less properties on the tax sale. We won't have those coming in over and over again. So that's where the advantage is for the county. But you wouldn't want the county, for intents purposes, controlling or having input, except for a board member, into your land bank. I mean, the city of Fort Scott doesn't really give a
No, I mean, I
phooey.
think we need to be independent of,
Right.
or as independent as possible of the city and the county, but we're not the ones sitting on those commissions making
Right. I mean,
strategic planning decisions either.
I've already told Rhonda I would give up part of my salary to help fund that full-time position, because, yeah, go ahead and quote that. There you go. Quote that. Yeah. I'm saying it publicly. I mean, because to me, that's how important this is. I mean, but the county can't be the long-term solver of this. It has to be the municipalities understanding the importance of what their future looks like. And right now, the data suggests that we all got to get outside of the box and start thinking about radical thinking, because our future right now is, the data is not good. I mean, if I owned 20 rental properties in town, I'd be a little nervous.
So that's what brings me back to my wheel and the cogs in it.
Right.
So this 1 hour a month, us doing this, there's so much more work that has to go into this than that. And there's a lot more people that are going to be involved in that, I hope.
Yeah.
But
I think hiring someone, this is my opinion only, as a fine taxpayer of Bourbon County and buying things within the city limits of Fort Scott, I think hiring a full-time person, I mean, Pittsburgh, I mean, it's a good idea. It's just a matter of who's going to come up with the funding. And I volunteered, some of my, that I use for the tax sale, I'll give it to half of it, but they're going to have to help me on my end too, because if we can clear some titles up and get personal service, and because right now I'm just doing the minimum because that's all we have time for. And the minimum is all I have to do legally, but I'd like to do more, but it's just a matter of time, energy, and money.
I feel like we need some kind of a work session or something that's longer than 45 minutes, because we have a meeting and then we regurgitate what we did in the last meeting for 30 minutes, really don't get anywhere, and start again the next month.
For 8 months.
But we have made headway tonight with you two coming with the budget. To go forward to the commissioners.
Yeah, which is fine, but I kind of feel like that budget, I mean, I'd like all of your input on that as well, or it to be done in more of a work session types. I agree it's necessary, but I think that it would be appropriate to do in a work session type setting where we all say, go see what you think it's going to cost. What are the holding costs of this vacant lot in your opinion, and then come back and put it together. I'm happy to work with Greg on it. We can do that. I'd like to see the budget that Rhonda put together, because I don't know why we're going to try to completely recreate the wheel. But I think we need some kind of a work session. These 1 hour meetings monthly where we spend over half the time talking about what we talked about last time and not really making a lot of progress. Just, we need a little more. We need a big push to kind of.
What do you think?
What?
Make a motion. What are you thinking? I agree with you wholeheartedly.
we need a plan.
Yeah. So what are we able to do, Diane? Everything we do has to be done in a public meeting on.
Even a work
What are our
session.
options for a work session, I guess?
Can't take any action in a work session.
But we can have a meeting of the minds, so to
Yes,
speak.
you can.
Yeah, you just
Okay.
couldn't vote on the budget or anything like
Yeah,
Diane
you
said.
can vote on anything in a work session.
Okay, I make a motion that we schedule a minimum 2 hour work session sometime in the next 2 weeks.
We will miss if it's for budgetary, we'll miss the city commission meeting, if that's okay.
Yeah, I don't think she's saying strictly for budgetary. I think it's planning.
Okay.
And I think that our work product will be a part of that. You need a foundation. You just can't go in with a blank slate. So we need some reasonably researched talking points with the city and the county. It's only reasonable that they have some data upon which to act and not just
Matt, are you still
throw
working?
darts at a dartboard. Yeah.
Okay. I will tell you, I found the budget. It was part of the original ordinance, 3535. Estimated first year budget, $30,000 provided by a previous
In
individual.
what year was that from?
2000.
The original budget? And in that, out of that budget, it had demolition of 3 houses, $9,000 for mowing, and legal work for titles, $3,000. At that time, would you recall maybe how many houses we were looking at in the land bank?
And we do know that the city's policy for land bank donations was they would control them. It would not be an all or none thing, correct, Justin? They, when you had a tax sale,
The problem is that the way I think it's supposed to, at that point, we were going through our training processes, and the land bank can't go in and pick and choose
Right.
what they want.
Yeah.
So we found out through our training that you have to, it's kind of an all or nothing.
Yeah, we had 12,000 for demolition of 3 houses. And like I said, I think this was with the understanding that the city thought that they could control the number of of tax sale properties coming to them. They could pick and choose, and that became not accurate.
And that $30,000 doesn't include any salary for a,
No. Yeah, they were gonna carve it out to them.
That's, I mean, and completely, to be completely transparent with the board though as well, when we asked for 50 several months ago, that wasn't including a salary, because at that time it was understood that Reddy, myself, was going to be able to do that. However, there is no possible way I can do land bank and do the job I currently have.
Agreed.
So the 50,000 was just to cover paperwork, deeds and everything like that, title work, mowing, demos, if we had a few that made it through the tax sale before the city could demo them. So none of that included salary. Salary was not on the top of the list when I asked for the 50. Now, it could be, but I'm just wanted to be completely transparent with the board at that time. So
even by those numbers, based on probably fewer properties, would you say, Rhonda?
I have the number like 25 or something in my head is what's in.
But I mean, just in mowing and title, there's what, 9,000 and 3,000 respect, so $12,000 in mowing and title, and we have a less than $5,000 budget right now.
And the title work there is actually legal work, because there are 3 properties on there. You're gonna have to quiet title or something to ever possibly move them to somebody. It was zombie mortgage and no heirs and some problems. So that was not title. It was work to get the titles clean enough to sell them on some properties. Because I really think that you have to do the title work, and then you have to collect from the recipient your cost of getting that property to them. With not mowing it and things like that, but your title work, your deed, and all that, you're gonna have to pass that on to
If no action is taken and nothing is voted upon, are we able to pull in additional people as we deem necessary into a work session? Or is it limited to
Talking city staff, or who you mean, are you
I don't
talking
know.
people in the community?
people that may have relevant experience and or training in this already?
I think you can invite whoever you want to your meeting, to your work session. You need a second to her motion. We have a motion on the floor with no second yet.
Could you read the motion again, please?
The motion is to schedule a 2-hour work session within the next 2 weeks.
Do we have any dates?
That's the hard part.
Need a second to the motion first.
I'll second that.
on the discussion part, I will say that if you choose to, if you do want to invite county or city commissioners, and Diane can probably back me up on this, that it can't be, if it's going to be 3 of them or more, then she's going to need to know, because they have to vote to, or say, we're going to be at the meeting, correct? Or post it, okay.
I don't think there's any need for that.
They have a representative. So.
Yeah, I was just
Yeah.
giving that out there.
Right.
Or if the 2 weeks is too limiting, maybe I'll amend my motion to a 2-hour work session in the next month as soon as everyone's schedules allow. I'm just tired of coming here every month and not getting anything done, guys, if you haven't been able to tell.
Agreed.
I'll second that.
Ready to call? Patrick Wood,
Yes.
Bailey Lyons.
Yes.
Robert Kuhn,
Yes.
Tim Van Hookey.
Yes.
Jim Harris,
Yes.
Greg Motley,
Yes.
Craig Campbell.
Yes.
So we are waiting on Mr. Quick at this time due to technical difficulties. And I don't know if we're going to be able to show the properties or not. I guess he could turn them around and show everybody there. And oh, he's
Maybe
got a
could
cord.
we just
Yeah.
get that information prior to the work, or actually better yet, can Matt attend our work session?
If
I'm
you
gonna
want
have to go in the next like 15 minutes to get to a baseball game, and I feel like this warrants more than 15 minutes of our time.
It's
But
a
I would
sale.
like Matt to bring that information to the work session. And
wanting.
Going to show you the map first with all the dots so you can see kind of where everything is, and then
Come back to work session. Ready for some football.
okay, Matt, you're going to need a. Oh, Diane's going to give you hers.
So what you see, those are the ones in town. Almost all of them are in town. There's 2 in Bronson, but the rest of them are all in town, and you can see the way that they're grouped up. There's a few, like right there. There's 3 in the same block. Some of the others are spread out a little more, but these are the ones that are all coming up. Those are kind of spread out. There's a couple over there by the railroad tracks. And then on the west side, you've got several right behind downtown, 2 over there by themselves. And then there's a group of 3 over here. They're in the same block, a couple on the block over there. Other than those certain groups, they're kind of spread out through town.
Do you have current pictures of those?
I do. Where do you want to start?
I would rather do that in the work session personally,
Okay.
but
Yeah,
Can you
so-
show us just that cluster 3 that's right
That's
there
what
on
I was
the
thinking.
left-hand side?
Right here on the left?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. See, it's just an empty lot.
What's the address for people who are online?
627 South Heilman.
I mean, I'd be interested in looking what do the properties look like around it, what are the value of the properties around it, but
I can tell you that over on Heilman, just in the meeting the other night, there's 2 more properties that I think you went by that are being torn down on Heilman's. Here's another vacant lot on Heilman. So there's a few right there. Like I said, I think I didn't know they'd started, but if you're saying they've already started,
They have. I have actually sold one now, and I think it's
Can you talk in the microphone, Robert?
it varies a lot by the block.
yeah.
Oh,
And
man.
the Highland area definitely varies by the block, but where these are being shown, I think they're lower value homes over there.
What would you like, if we were to take the future list and go property by property, what information would you like to have? Do you want to look at the lot in its own self and then look at the lots to the side? I did that for the first tax sale. I've got notes on every property, like, I'll tell you one over on Little Street, Dollhouse, vacant lot that we own, Dollhouse. Let's figure out how to do something with that
And
property.
some of those that were more desirable didn't go on the tax sale because the specials were too high.
Correct. Yeah, correct.
Or else they probably would have been purchased on the tax sale, which then means somebody can come and purchase them from Land Bank. And if you're willing to purchase them on tax sale anyway, and you're not being guaranteed personal service, then that's already been considered.
And I'm not going to know whether a house is rehabable. I would love to see us be able to get houses that still have a potential for a second life to get that, because blight is one thing that we're really after, but so is affordable housing.
Yeah, I would think that to start with a simple like condition level rating 1 to 5 or A through F would be appropriate? What's the square footage, a shot of the house and the neighborhood, and what's a, however we want to rate
So
condition
Who's,
level?
who's gonna establish, you know, I mean, I'll be completely honest, I know these gentlemen over here are contractors and builders and property owners. I'm not a I'm licensed electrician, I'm not a licensed contractor. Is anyone else on this committee that there is?
I was gonna ask about that, and I will say in terms of my qualification, that they're not, you know, I'm self-made and do my own investments, so maybe my perspective is different, than the master contractor I'm sitting next to.
That's a lot to ask of somebody as an unpaid person, though. I'm just gonna say
But I do.
it's a lot of time.
I do
With a
think
full-time
anybody
job.
who does investing in the community could go look at some of these, I think. And that was kind of what I was wondering, you know, let's say there's 40 of them, you know, can 4 of us pick 10 and do it by criteria, like she said, you know, I'll take 10. And that's something that's productive being done outside of this.
Yeah, I mean,
And
I
then
think all
we get a picture.
Yeah.
We get this.
And if we miss the rating by 1, you know, it's a 2 instead of a 3. It's not the end of the world.
It would tell a story that right now you can't see, and that was my concern relative to the worth of the property, because then there's the rubric. There's already a standard where we're saying, okay, this fits this, and this.
Or maybe we just go and rate the house, and just the house on a 1 through 5 on desirability, or however you would rate it, and all of that factors into it. What's the surrounding neighborhood like? Like when I go look at a house, does it have major foundation problems? That's a huge expense that I want to try to avoid. Or does it look like it's more cosmetic? You know, what do the houses around it look like?
So I'm thinking single sheet of paper, because then it can be passed around. Single sheet of paper, photo of the house, or not a house, because then you can start separating those. This stack is vacant lots. This stack has structures. We can pass around. These are rehabable structures, and start cutting this up.
And instead of splitting it, you take 10, you take 10, you take 10, why don't whoever wants to go rate these on let's create some kind of a 1 to 5 rubric, go rate them, and then average them out, because maybe you come in at a 2 and I come in at a 3, and then maybe we focus on the ones that we feel like are most desirable.
Make that part of our work schedule plan.
Yes.
Okay.
Matter of fact, if anyone wants to go out ahead of time, let's say we're gonna keep it on a scale from 1 to 5, right?
1 being the most desirable and 5 being probably not worth
Yeah.
our
Why don't,
efforts at
if
first.
some folks want to go out between the work session
Yeah.
and say, I looked at these and these are the ones I did, and I give it a 3, you might look at me and say, you're out of your mind. That's a 2 or a 1, but at least we've established kind of a concept of what the impression is. I do think it's important, though, especially for the vacant lots, that we do, and I think Patrick brought it up earlier, the consideration of what are the properties like that are around that vacant lot.
And I think I think Mr. Morgan was back there again. He sat through, how many meetings is this for us now? Whole meetings. But can we, as a group, set a minimum for a vacant lot? I think Pat talked about this before. I would like to propose that we set a minimum of $1,000 per vacant lot. And if someone wants to come and say, I'm going to give you $500 for that because I've mowed it for the last 5 years and I've saved the city $500, then they can make their reasoning to do so. But until we set a minimum, we're not going to have anybody come and tell us they're going to pay us for a lot.
And I would like to second that.
Well, hold on, before we go, I think we already had something established as far as on vacant lots per foot, like 70.
Or 75% of appraised value.
The current ordinance is $70 per front
Yeah.
foot.
$70 per front footage.
Well, I think,
That's the current ordinance.
Give it to them.
yeah, it's a lot easier because a lot of the general public don't know how to look up what the frontage is on a.
You're gonna have.
Most city lots, then, if you go by that, are going to be what, around $700 to $700 to $1,400.
Why don't we hear what Justin's got to say?
I would add something once again, because of my position with the county and what I do for a living. I have to make the bright line. I'm not your guys' attorney and I'm not representing anyone in the group, but I would also put a caveat on that too, that you do something with the title, you know, basically saying either it's one that we can't find anybody and it's not a clear title and that's their responsibility, or they're going to have the title cleared in X amount of years or days or months or weeks, because that helps with that lot for them down the road. But if they come in with the understanding that they're going to sit on for 15 years and be a part of their house and just be their yard, that expectation is created so that you have that bright line down the road. So $1,000 and the title, whatever that's gonna be.
So.
Or we're talking about a different
brought
price
up
if there's
like
non-guaranteed
$75 a frontage foot.
$70 per frontage foot.
That's 30.
Because you tell I work for a living.
Yeah, I said I thought that's just $1,000 flat fee made sense because then you could just tell somebody it's $1,000. I mean, it's
Yeah.
pretty easy.
I make a
but-
motion that we vote to set a minimum on vacant lots, regardless of where they're located, at $1,000. That doesn't mean we have to sell one for $1,000, but that at least gives a starting point for somebody to come and make a case as to why they should get it for nothing or less, or
So when you say it doesn't mean we have to sell it for $1,000, you're saying
it's
it'd
a
be
starting, a minimum.
minimum 1,000, but could be more.
Correct. I mean, if we get a vacant lot in a prime commercial area, then it probably isn't going to be very smart of us to let it go for $1,000. But
And on the same token, then just like she was saying, someone can make their case.
Right.
They can come in and say, "Hey, I have saved you this amount of money. I realize you have to have some expenses. I've been mowing it for the last 5 years. I want to give $500." And that's something we could vote on and know that there's a value there that we're accepting in lieu.
Okay, so if we do that, what's the point
Yeah,
of the $1,000?
Of the minimum, because if we're gonna, the minimum to me means that's the lowest.
That's just
because if you don't set a minimum, people aren't going to come in and offer you anything, which we've seen the
That's
last
already
couple of
happened.
meetings we've had, and they've sat here through multiple meetings and they feel like they have a case to get it for free, which they very well might. But if we don't set a minimum, nobody's going to offer us anything.
For $1,000 minimum, and do they qualify for that special?
But I have a question. Pat, didn't you say you had some lots of the value to $200?
Oh, yeah.
Why would I give $1,000 for a value of a lot $200? I mean, do the math. I mean, why would I do that? Why would
Well,
anyone
there's
do
a
that?
difference between a assessed value and an appraised value.
Absolutely.
Well, but these are lots, Jim, too, that I bought off the tax sale for $60.
So that's where the assessed value is coming from. A lot of times the assessed value in this county is coming from the last time it sold, maybe 30 years ago, sometimes, you know.
I don't care if you're in a $20,000 tax bracket or a $500,000 tax bracket. If one of these is your adjacent to you and you want to acquire that, you're going to come in and follow the process.
The bottom line is I feel like we need to cover our costs.
Mhm.
$1,000 would cover our closing fees, right?
Mhm.
Justin? But you're giving me that look like,
I think you're missing the point of what I think that you're. Let's do it. So you're missing the point of what the land bank is. I think. I mean, what you're trying to do is you're trying to create sustainability and long-term future outlook, whatever that is. And so the $1,000 minimum is really important. But two, you got to also figure out what it's going to look like 20 years from now, or when I'm dead. I'll use me. 20 years from now, when I'm dead, and I get a lot from you, you want to make sure that that lot is clear and controlled and good to go 20 years from now. Because what I'm seeing in the tax sale is, and Rhonda can back me up on this, there's a property on Hill Street that if the land bank doesn't do their job, that property on Hill Street is going to be worthless forever. So you got to work with that future owner to make sure that has value 20 years from now. And so you got to say, if you're going to say $1,000, you also got to say $1,000 and not clear title. What I'd rather see is have that landowner give that land to them for free and clear the title up and make them do that for $1,500. So you got to find out where your sweet spot is, or have them give it to them for free and have them hire the lawyer and clear the title up. I mean, you got to make sure you got everything eyes
But
dotted.
you're
We
giving
also
it to
have
a
to
landowner.
keep in mind that we have no budget
I get
right
that.
now.
No, I'm saying, but you can use the person that wants that lot as your resource.
But if we have a $1,000 minimum, I'm just using Mr. Morgan as an example here. I'm not saying he would be willing to pay $1,000, but he has sat through multiple of our meetings. Jay, there he is. I'm talking about you while you're out of the room. I'm sorry. But let's just say, that is worth something monetarily to him. $1,000 is a fifth of our budget right now. So it, like Pat said, it covers some costs. And
I'm absolutely agreeing with that.
but I also think we reserve the right as a land bank to say, okay, here's a proposal to get this lot for $1,000. Well, maybe in our work session that we're going to have, we've identified some that maybe we want to hold on to because of future possibilities.
But I'm saying bigger than that. What the black market that was created, and Pat is using one as an example. He bought for $60. He's selling it for $200. we don't know when Pat is gone, 40 years from now, what that lot looks like legally. And so I think the land bank is it establishes the legal part of it too. I mean, they walk hand in hand. They're part of the cog is the legal part and the monetary part. To me, they're together. It's symbiotic of each. You can't just sell it for 1,000 and be like, okay, we're done.
So wait a second. High on the rubric for starters is going to adjacent landowners.
Absolutely.
Now,
No, I don't think it is.
The
Our
highest
rubric,
is a build a
it's
house.
4 of 5. And that's the other
Yeah.
thing that I've said in multiple meetings now is we need to agree on a plan that we are going to follow. And right now, the scoring on adjacent landowners is second to last. So
okay.
maybe we want to change that.
So in a correction of scoring a rubric, go with me for a minute. I own a house. I've got to kind of deal with some issues here. Maybe I want to sell it. It doesn't matter whether it's 5 years or 10 years from now. If I own the house and I have property that I acquired through the land bank, when I go to sell it, that's going to get addressed, the title issues.
Maybe.
Maybe. But leave it on that landowner.
Right, I'm saying do
If it's going to adjacent
$1,000 with no guarantee of title. But
Yes.
I'm agreeing with Bailey and then also slightly disagreeing. I'm saying you got to make sure that you take care of the legal part too as part of your bid.
As
So
an
like
option?
as an
Are you
option,
saying
absolutely, you can use it as an option. I can say instead of you giving us $1,000, why not make them clear the title for $2,000
I agree with that.
instead of coming out of pocket? I mean, you have options like that. I mean, Rhonda and I worked up this started for a lot of reasons, but we had a ghost. She's calling it a ghost property. There's like 5 that I know of for sure, but 3 of them were in prior sales or how this started. And to me, if I'm on the city commission or on the land bank, to me, clear title is way more important than what the value of the property is. 100%. I mean, all day long, right? It's because it can sit in that other person, he can mow it, which saves the taxpayer money. But what happens when that person dies?
It's only important to the property that goes to an investor, that goes to something else. If it's going to an adjacent landowner, it is not important and should not be important.
Well, as long as you specify that $1,000 and the title is
Agreed.
worthless.
Agreed.
But
I mean,
the other side of it is that it's not doing anything for Fort Scott.
No, and my concern too is, and maybe we can discuss this during the work session, but if we get to the point where we're saying, well, we're not going to mind the minimum, we could get to a point where funding for the land bank, because we should be able to get to a point where it's self-funded. But if we continue to say, you know what, I'm going to give this away for 200 or whatever, pretty soon concerns over budget, we're going to put ourselves in that hole of not having any funding for the land bank.
We have to agree to a plan and agree to a rubric and then have reasoning as to why we would deviate from that. But right now we're shooting at the hip with we've not even all as a land bank board agreed on the plan that we're going to follow, the rubric that we're going to follow.
And since we don't have a plan, I'm against setting that minimum right now because we don't have a plan. And, the other side of that is liability. If we say the $1,000 minimum, somebody says, okay, I'm paying it, and then they find out that a neighbor paid $500, we have to have some very clear criteria as to why we deviated or we're susceptible there. The other thing is, I think we have to quit talking about what it costs, because the economic value is the economic value. It doesn't matter if Patrick paid $20 or $60 or $600 for those lots. They are worth what they are worth to the market. And so we have to think in terms of those minimum bids and those things, independent of what our costs are. The market doesn't care. So
I think he means cover the costs that we would incur as a land bank, though.
But if the lot's not worth that, he's not going to do that.
Well said. That's why they let you have a spot in the newspaper. Well said, sir.
We
We are going to agree to table that then, and that'll be a big topic of discussion in the work session, right? The rubric and the minimum.
I have to go. I
have a
I
motion
think
and a
all
second.
of this needs to be discussed at length in the work session.
Okay, I second
So
that.
I would make a motion to adjourn and discuss all of this at the work session. And Matt, if you were able to come to the work session, you would be very valuable. Justin,
You already had a motion, a second on the table.
I think we all voted yes.
No,
Didn't
it
we?
was,
We
no,
didn't?
nobody.
Okay.
You didn't take a vote.
Okay.
You can amend.
Okay,
You
sorry.
can
Do you
withdraw.
want to withdraw your motion for the minimum bid of 1,000?
Yes, we'll talk about that at the work session.
Okay, so you're going to withdraw. You're going to withdraw your second? Okay.
Okay.
Motion to
Great.
adjourn. Any second?
Second.
Okay.
Aye.
Already voted on that, sorry.
Believe it or not, the openness to the can maker, believe it or not, was probably one of the more productive meetings I think that we've had.
We're gonna get there. We're gonna wrestle.
People weren't afraid.